people's conscious guard is down, so that when these mind viruses are essentially put out there, they go straight into the subconscious, and then it then essentially infects the host, the person, on a deep subconscious level. Is that kind of how it's working?
It's exactly how it works. So, as you know, in the book, I just prosecute the case for this with all of the operas and the plays and the TV shows and the radio shows and the operas and the, blockbuster movies and all of these things and the subliminal programming that are in them.
Welcome to the Prime Life Project podcast, a place to help you unlock your full potential, both mentally and physically, to become the best version of you. Welcome back to another episode of the Prime Life Project podcast. I'm your host, Daniel James, and if you are new to the podcast, welcome. If you're a returning listener, welcome again as always. If you take any value from today's episode, please don't forget to like and share it with a friend. Help us spread the word to help as many people as possible. And again, if you are new to the episode, I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope you go back and check out some previous episodes that we've done. I've got some amazing guests coming later on in the year, but most importantly, don't forget to leave us a review. So if you are a regular listener here and you enjoy the content we're putting out here, some of the good guests we've got on here, don't forget to leave us a review. Again, it's greatly appreciated on Apple Podcasts. It helps us to grow the podcast. Again, we grow this podcast through word of mouth. We don't have any advertisements on here. We try and keep it as raw and authentic as possible. So again, if you do like the podcast, again, leave us a review. 5-star ratings are always welcome. And also just talk about it with your friends. So if you're having a conversation and you think, oh, well, actually, I listened to a podcast about grief, or listen to a podcast about this, just share the episode for us. Again, just help us spread the word, to help as many people as possible. It's greatly appreciated. But my guest today is Randy Gage, and he's a thought-provoking critical thinker who will make your approach to business and your life change in a completely new way. Randy's the author of 14 books that have been translated into 25 languages, including his most recent worldwide bestseller, Rebirth, which is where we're going to spend a lot of today's episode. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this with Randy. He's spoken to over 2 million people across 50 countries and is a member of the Speakers Hall of Fame and Direct Selling Hall of Fame. So really excited to welcome to today's podcast, Randy Gage. How are we, Randy?
Hey, great to be on with you, Daniel.
Really looking forward to this. Like I said off air, just read your latest book, and I'm very excited to chat with you today because I know that you're going to provide a lot of value to my audience. But I know a lot of my audience probably have never heard of you before. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to just take them back to who you actually are as a person. What I'd like to do is I'd like you to go back to young Randy, because you've got quite a backstory. Like, you wrote all these books, you're a renowned speaker, like you're living this amazing life, but it hasn't always been that way for you. So I'd like to just take my audience back to younger Randy and how you actually became the person that you are today, because again, doing my research into you, it's quite a fascinating story.
Yeah, I guess we could say fascinating. It's a nice way to say. It's more diplomatic than to say train wreck or hot mess or dumpster fire or some of the other ways you might describe my young life. But yeah, it's been interesting. It's been fascinating. The seminal moment. I was a teenage alcoholic. I was a teenage drug addict. So I ended up in jail for armed robbery at 15 years old. And so that was really kind of the first seminal transformational moment in my life, was, moving on from that. Obviously I'd made a lot of very bad choices, and was fortunate that I was able to redirect and, modify my behavior.
When you, I heard you speak about this in your latest book, with the drug addiction, was that something that was linked into your sexuality and something that you were using to sort of cope with that? Because I heard you mention it in your book to do with the stuff in the LGBTQ community where they struggle with a lot of identity and it can lead them down sort of a rabbit hole. Was that the case for you? Or was it just down to the reasons?
I think that contributed part of it, but only a part. I just felt like in every way, like I didn't belong on this earth. I just seemed so different than everybody else around me. I grew up in a place called Madison, Wisconsin, a quiet little Midwestern city, 200,000 people or something, college town.
Bizarrely, I actually know where you're talking about. I went to university in Iowa, Clinton,
Okay.
Iowa. Clinton, Iowa is where I went to university. So I think I've played football around that area because as soon as you mentioned that, I'm like, I know that place.
Yes. And if you're in Clinton, Iowa, it's Madison, Wisconsin is a hot spot.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Right? So, but it's a state Midwestern conservative community. And I just kind of felt like at some point, aliens must have put me in a basket and dropped me on my mother's doorstep, and she just adopted me and never told me, because how else could I explain that? I was very awkward, very strong social anxiety. So I was very nervous, tiptoed around life, afraid of offending anybody, desperate to fit in and be liked.
I think that's a lot of people nowadays, isn't it, as well? Like a lot of people just walk around with this worry of this acceptance. And it's something that you've spoke about before, again, about these mind viruses. Can you talk to me about what these mind viruses are? Because the way that, again, you articulate in your book is really, really good. Like people just walk around, from my experience, in this almost zombie-like state. And they don't realize that they're in this zombified state. And if they do realize they're in this zombified state, they don't really know how to get out of it. And you articulate beautifully about mind viruses and memes. So can you just talk about that a little bit and this whole thing about this matrix that we live in? Because I've always said that the Matrix wasn't a documentary. It's basically, it was a documentary rather than a movie. And when you referenced it in your book, I was like, okay, yeah. So you sort of talk about it slightly differently than I allude to it. So can you just talk to me about this constant fog that people seem to be in and mind viruses?
Yeah, so this is a big, deep subject. We could really go down a rabbit hole.
Please
so
do.
Let's see how.
I'm happy to go down rabbit holes.
Yeah, let's see how far we want to go down. Yeah, so I maintain in the book and at the moment that there really is a matrix, but it's not created by those agents, and it's not an intentional thing. It is a scenario which has developed because of marketers and computer algorithms and machine learning and artificial intelligence and all of the governments and social media platforms. And there are so many things that are trying to manipulate your behavior. Right? So Amazon knows everything that you buy, and they say, well, he bought this, then it's really likely he's going to respond to an email upselling this. And Walmart or Publix or wherever you do your grocery shopping knows everything you consume, what your habits are. They could probably tell you your weight, height, and everything based on your whole family's purchases. They probably know a woman is pregnant before she knows it herself, and obviously wouldn't tell her, but they could and say, they could send an email that said, by the way, you probably don't know this, but based on the food you've been selecting the last 9 weeks, there's a 69.25% chance you're pregnant. So we'd like to offer you our 20% off baby crib special, right?
Yeah.
And of course, they'll never send that email because you'd be so furious when you got it at the invasion of your privacy. But the fact is, Amazon and Apple, not Apple as much, but Amazon and Facebook and Walmart and these big multi-billion-dollar, multi-trillion-dollar, multinational retailers and online retailers, they know more about you than your spouse or your parent knows about you. They know you're gay before you know you're gay. They know you're pregnant before you know you're pregnant. They know you're going to get divorced before you know you're going to get divorced, because they've got billions of case studies to track for that. And so, and they all have their own agenda. They don't work together, right? Apple is competing with Amazon. Amazon is competing with Tesla. Tesla is competing with General Motors. General Motors is competing with Walmart, right? Everybody has their own gig, their own thing they're doing. But these companies now, they hire an army of psychologists to see what are the triggers. Facebook has learned, okay, so every time we mention Donald Trump, he clicks on that. Every time we mention Joe Biden, she clicks on that. Every time, we do a thing, the truth about insurance that residents of London should know, you're going to click on that, right? So there's all these computer algorithms and machine learning, and they keep developing, and they're all interacting, and they're all influencing each other. And so now media and social media, those platforms have got in on the thing because they need two things to exist as a business model. They need fear and they need outrage. So their algorithms will keep telling them which things scare you and which things outrage you, because that produces clicks. And when they get clicks, you stay on their site, and they can sell your eyeballs to other marketers who want to sell you other shit. And this is this continually escalating process. And that's what I would call the modern day matrix. So that's all of that is on top of the other element that you raised, which is memes or mind viruses.
So what are these memes and mind viruses then? Because again, we all know what memes are. They're the funny things that you send each other on Instagram, but that's not what they originally were. So what are these mind viruses and what are these memes, and why should people really be aware of them?
Yeah, for people who are curious, the term meme came from Sir Richard Dawkins in his book that he wrote called The Selfish Gene. And the phenomenon that he was studying is how we are actually, our behavior is more influenced by mind viruses today than it is by thousands of years of genetics, thousands of years. Excuse me, years of our DNA, because you have like how many thousands of years that your body and your organism has evolved your DNA to create you, your personality, your brain, your thoughts, your intelligent levels, your habits. But these machine learning algorithms from Facebook, they can influence you more than 2,000 years of behavioral conditioning from your DNA, because they've learned what your fear and what your fear and outrages. So a mind virus, he chose the word meme because he christened it the science of memetics. And memetics just means mind viruses. And just as your laptop can get infected with a mind virus, your brain, your subconscious mind, can get infected with a mind virus. So a mind virus would be fear of people who are different of you. It could be a belief that money is bad or rich people are evil. It could be a catchy jingle like the baby shark show that everybody kind of turns into an earworm in your mind. Or Shaky Shaky by Daddy Yankee. You're in the car and you hear that pulsating off the car window next to you, and then you're humming it in the elevator and you infect the next person with it. And you know what I mean? They're mind viruses, and they literally parasitize the host and cause you to replicate the virus. So you spread it. So something that used to take a behavioral change that might used to have taken 80 years to get around the planet can now happen in 30 hours because of 24-hour news networks and social media and the internet and podcasts and blogs. Kim Kardashian can tweet out something that goes to tens of millions of people and is retweeted to tens of millions more people. So literally, there's a reason why when you watch, Britain's Got Talent, The Voice, American Idol, Denmark Idol, or any show, why do the judges always have a specific brand of coffee cup or a specific can of soda or a specific bottle of a drink, because there's some company paying a lot of money to the production company or the network, because that creates a mind virus. That, what's her name? The girl, Kelly Clarkson on The Voice has a Starbucks mug in front of her. Wow, I love Kelly. I must love Starbucks. So the next time you drive by a Starbucks and you see that logo, there's an affinity, a preponderance of you to go in there because you're more comfortable with it, because you like the brand, because that got transferred to you because you saw Kelly Clarkson and John Legend and Blake Shelton and Ariana Grande, holding one of those cups.
I think that's one of the biggest things here is like what you spoke about here with these mind viruses. It's essentially what they're doing is they're going straight. What normally happens is, for the audience, you've got these ideas that basically get implanted into your subconscious, but your conscious mind has to accept them first. But my understanding of this, I'd like to talk about this and see if I'm correct here, Randy, is that essentially what these mind viruses are doing is they're essentially bypassing the conscious mind. What's essentially happening is that they're going straight into the subconscious, because most people are walking around in an unguarded state. So essentially the conscious mind is the guardian, is the gatekeeper of the subconscious. What's happening is, because of this conditioning of the matrix, the news, blah, 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 people's conscious guard is down. So that when these mind viruses are essentially put out there, they go straight into the subconscious, and then it then essentially infects the host, the person, on a deep subconscious level. Is that kind of how it's working?
It's exactly how it works. So, as you know, in the book, I just prosecute the case for this with all of the operas and the plays and the TV shows and the radio shows and the operas and the, blockbuster movies and all of these things and the subliminal programming that are in them. So, for instance, in the book, because you read it, I talked about the first real superhero movie was Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man movie. And there's a part where little poor Peter Parker is being raised by his aunt and uncle. And his uncle says to him, "We may not be rich, but at least we're honest." Now that is a classic mind virus. Because what does that really mean? We may not be rich, but at least we're honest. What that means is rich people are evil. You should be glad that you're not a rich people, because then you would be evil. You should be happy that we're one of the poor, spiritual, noble people, the nice people in the world. And by the way, so here we are, whatever it is, 20 or 30 years later, there's been 2 different Spider-Man, 3 different Spider-Man since then. There's a new one out. It just broke all the records. It opened up a week or 2 ago. And I watched it the other night. And of course, there is still in the movie this kid who's the rich kid. So when they're traveling across Europe and they're in all these crappy hotels and everything, and then they get upgraded to this spectacular 5-diamond resort because the bad guys want to kill Peter Parker and his girlfriend there. But the rich guy walks in and says, "I'm home." And he's always arrogant because he comes from a rich family. And then after all of the whole climactic stuff of the movie, and they travel back to the United States, and all of the kids are getting met by their parents, and all the parents are hugging their kids who are safe and they're alive. And here's the rich kid. He's being met by a butler with a sign with his name on it. And he says, "So I guess mom was too busy to come," So it's like, that's just evil, subliminal, subconscious programming that rich people are bad. You don't want to be rich. It's noble to be poor, or it's spiritual to be poor. And yeah, that didn't go in your conscious mind. That went directly to your subconscious mind, because you didn't even know you got programmed with it. I guarantee you, and it broke all the records. I guarantee you there's no one else who watched that movie in the last week who noticed that, unless they read my Radical Rebirth book.
The best one you mentioned in the book was actually the Titanic one. because that's a great movie that I like, Titanic.
Yeah.
So you talk about Titanic, but the thing is what you've done, Randy, is you've destroyed movies for me forever. So fuck you.
I know. It's true. It's true.
You read your book. You read your book. I'm just like, this guy's literally ruined movies for me, because you literally explain how the plot works and again how you call it out. And the interesting thing for me that was interesting reading it was you talk about orphans. So you mentioned how you literally list loads, like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. All these people have got no parents, and it's like what essentially happened is the author's writing about a story that resonated with them, so they stick in like an orphan kid. And then what's happening is just all these stories.
Memes that involve children spread the wildest, the rapidest. Because of course we all relate to that. This poor little boy or this poor little girl without a mommy and a daddy. And that, of course, as you say in the book, I mean, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, I mean, you know, little orphan Annie, I mean, Harry Potter. It's just, I got a list of like 60 in the book of all these orphans. And it's like, what is going on? It's just that the writers of these comic books and movies and fairy tales and stories and plays and operas, they're infected with the same mind viruses of everyone else. And so they read about Mowgli, poor jungle boy, you know, they watched that movie when they were a kid. And so when they grew up and they wrote a book, they wrote Harry Potter, or they wrote Little Orphan Annie, or they wrote Batman or Spider-Man or Superman or Wonder Woman, or any one of all these, you know, orphans that now populate all pop culture.
So with this, and this is what I really like about your book, again, Radical Rebirth. I like the title of it. Again, you allude to it in the book, why it's called that. But again, you've got this rebirth. So essentially what we've got now is, fundamentally, my belief is that a lot of people are walking around in this subconscious state of not feeling good enough because of all these mind viruses, because of all these memes. And they're basically, everywhere they turn, they're basically made to feel like they're not good enough, that somehow they need this latest product or this latest thing to become happy, or this complete version of themselves. But your book is essentially about breaking down how people can fight back. And you talk about killing the old you and then releasing that which no longer serves you, and then evolving into this person that you're meant to become. So I'd like to break this down, because again, I want people to go out and buy your book, because the chapters and the way you explain these things, especially when it comes to money, which people hate the word money, they absolutely hate it. And again, I had a podcast about this, talking about the first thing you need to do is fix your beliefs on money until you can actually attract money. But what's the first thing? Let's break each of these steps down in the book. So what's the first thing people can do to like fight back and like basically recognize they're stuck in this trap? Because that's the first thing, is the awareness. And most people don't have that awareness. So how do people listening to this that think, bloody hell, Randy, like I'm stuck in this spider's web, how can I get out of it? Like, what's the first step?
Well, the formula I have in the book is, you know, you've got to recognize that the subconscious programming is there. First of all, you've got to dig down and find out. And what I did for the book was I broke down your life, my life, everybody's life into 6 main areas that we make decisions, right? And these are the decisions that transform our life, create our lives forever, right? The decisions, the core foundational beliefs that you have in each of those areas will determine your happiness, health, and prosperity for life. So like one of the issues is money and success, right? So if you have this subconscious belief that money is evil, but you have this conscious desire to be a millionaire, or this conscious desire to be wealthy, those two are going to fight, your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. And of course, the subconscious mind always wins. You know, another area is marriage and relationships. So if you grew up, because I would posit that all of these core foundational beliefs you develop in these areas, you do it before you're 10 years old. Most of them you're developed at 6 or 7 or 8 years old. So for instance, if we take marriage and relationships, if you grow up as a kid and your mother and father are fighting all the time, bickering, or one is cheating on the other, or one is abusive to the other, you have a core foundational belief about marriage and relationships. You don't know you've developed it at 6, but you do. And when you're 26, you're repeating it, unless you've gone back and recognized, whoa, wait a minute. I learned this really dysfunctional behavior from my parents, and now I'm repeating the same process in my own marriage. I'm sabotaging my own marriage because I had this core foundational belief that this is what a normal marriage looks like. Health and wellness, right? I mean, what's the average person's core foundational belief about health and wellness, right? You do a lot of work in this area, right? You're a trainer, so you see this all the time. The average person thinks, well, it's normal to drink 10 or 12 diet sodas a day. It's normal to microwave your breakfast. It's normal to get lunch in a drive-through. And if you pass through another drive-through at dinner time and get dinner in a bucket, that's perfectly normal. And you should probably, by that, you should gain extra 5 pounds in your 20s, an extra 10 pounds in your 30s, 5 more pounds in your 40s, 5 more pounds in your 50s. By the time you're 60, you should be 35 to 50 pounds overweight. You should be taking 10 to 13 prescription drugs a day to stay out of the hospital. And that's what normal health is for most people, right? That's a core foundational belief, because that's what they saw in their family. That's what they see in their spouse. That's what they see on TV. That's what they see in the movies. That's the mind viruses they get infected with. And so if you don't, in any one of these 6 areas, so you got to go back and say, wait a minute, I need to question and I, as you know, in the book, I break out each of the 6 areas. Here's the prevalent destructive mind viruses in each area. And then I outline, here are some empowering beliefs that you could replace them with. And then it's all about programming, right? Because so now I can watch the Spider-Man movie, and I loved it. It was a great movie. You know, this Tom Holland guy from your neck of the woods, he's brilliant in the movie. He does a great job. Zendaya's in it. She's amazing. It's just a fun summer popcorn or holiday season movie, right? But I can enjoy that and still notice, oh yeah, look at the rich kid when he comes, and then the chauffeur is waiting with the sign and his mom isn't there. Look at that negative programming. These son of a bitches were trying to sneak by me, and they didn't even know they were trying to sneak by me, right? Because they're just programmed. They're just replicating the virus. But I catch that, right? And I'm going to reprogram that. So when I watch Dune or Spider-Man or whatever blockbuster movies out, the next morning I'm going to be listening to a positive podcast. I'm going to be reading a positive book. I'm going to be doing something to counter program against the negative programming that I've been exposed to.
I think that's the thing I like about you the most is that when you talk about the book here, like you're giving people a way to become aware but still live in the real world, because there's a real problem with this where you become aware, but then you become too aware and you basically live in this state of constant fear because you literally see the matrix of what it is. It's like Neo. You can see what's going on. You can see what happens. And I'm guilty of this, which is why I really did enjoy your book. Again, there's some real home truths in there. I like the fact that it was you that was speaking. I love it when an author does his own audio books. I don't know, just something about that. And that's one big thing to me. You're talking about, no, actually, you can still go and watch these movies and know what's going on. You can still go out and maybe have a McDonald's, but realize that actually what they're trying to do is get you addicted to it. But you're coming from a place of awareness that empowers you rather than cripples you and leads you sort of worrying. Can I just sort of touch on this? This, again, is something in the book that I found fascinating about beliefs and how deep these run. And this was bizarre to me. I spoke to you about this off air. So again, can you talk to me about your male partner and this realization of him being homophobic in a church? Can you just share that story? Because it genuinely blew my mind when you I was like, what the fuck? And I didn't even realize this could be a thing.
Yeah, so I'm in this relationship with this wonderful Mexican guy, but it's very rocky. We're having lots of issues, right? So I don't know why. He doesn't know why. We're in love with the idea of being in love. We're just not actually in love because we're not emotionally sophisticated enough to be there at that point of our lives. So we just happened to be in church one Sunday in a unity church, which is a metaphysical Christian church without all the doctrines and the dogma that you would find in a traditional, let's say, a fundamentalist church. So there's a lot of LGBTQ people who go there. So we're there, and there's a couple sitting in front of us, and they're just wildly in love, and they're embracing each other through the whole thing, and then they kiss at the end of the service, and so that's in front of us at the church. So we go out to lunch after the service, and my partner says, something to the effect of, "Did you see that couple in front of us at the church?" And I was like, "Yeah, they look like they were really in love. I thought it was wonderful." It's like, "They shouldn't be acting that way in church." I'm like, "It's church. If you're in love, what better place to show your love than a church?" Seemed really spiritual to me. And he said something which immediately opened up my mind. He said, "They shouldn't be doing that in church in front of the children." And I was like, "Oh, in front of the children? Because children should not see two men in love?" That's not what I meant. I said, "Well, that's what," and then it dawned on me. Well, he comes from Mexico, very Catholic country. He's very Catholic. He was raised Catholicism his whole life, where they teach you if you're gay, you're going to rot and burn in hell with gnashing of teeth. So, of course, that's his subconscious programming is gay people are going to rot and burn in hell. His conscious programming is, I'm a gay man and I'm living my life in a gay relationship. And again, the conscious and the subconscious mind are competing. The subconscious mind always wins. And that was really the kind of the breakthrough for me to realize we're not supposed to be in a relationship. And I don't mean to put this all on him. I was just as big as an emotional cripple as he was at that point in my life. But it took that for me to see we're not in love. We're in love with the idea of being in love. We had a house, we had a picket fence, we had a shaggy dog, we had all the stuff you're supposed to have. It just, we weren't emotionally mature enough to be in a relationship.
I think one of the big things where he said in the book is essentially that he was subconsciously programmed as being homophobic.
He was homophobic.
Yeah. And that's one of the bizarre things. Again, I was like, wait, a gay person could be homophobic? And you were like, and in the book, it's like a light bulb moment. It's like, well, yeah, of course they can. Like outwardly, they are gay. Like their conscious mind is gay, but their subconscious programming is that being gay is wrong. So subconsciously, they are homophobic. But whether they are or not.
It's the same thing, by the way. There are a lot of wealthy kids who are total anti-wealth. That, they're born in a wealthy family and they are riddled with guilt for that because they think that rich people are evil and they're rich. Yep. And there's nothing they can do about it. They're born into wealth and they're very wealthy.
I think it's one of the biggest things. That's the first step in this book, like I said, about fighting back, is just gaining that awareness. Like you've got to, it's one of the biggest things I try and work on with my clients is just working on this identity and these beliefs. Because fundamentally, as you said, you can't run away from your subconscious. Your subconscious will always win, but you need to be aware. So again, I'm not going to ruin it. Get the book because in the book, you give some activities on how you can actually identify your views on your beliefs. So again, I'm going to leave that one there for a second. But the second stage with this is then you talk about killing your old self. So what does this actually, obviously this is the whole part of the rebirth. Obviously you've got to die to be reborn. So what does killing the old you look like? So we've now got this awareness. Obviously through reading your book, people can identify these limiting beliefs. What does it look like to actually kill this old version of you to step into a better version?
Yeah, you realize the late realization I didn't even make until after I wrote the book was like, this is the alternative to suicide. This is the alternative for people who hate themselves. They hate their lives. And I didn't even recognize it because I had been at and it was, by the way, now that we're talking about it, right after the breakup of this relationship that we just talked about. So I want to be a good guy. And I said, listen, just take the house, take the furniture. I'm going to take my car and I'm going to take my clothes. I'll pay all the bills. You just keep everything. I want to be friends. I don't want this to be negative, messy. We both just got dragged into something we weren't ready for. So I'm a professional speaker. I got gazillion airplane miles and hotel miles and, points. So I go to the Miami Airport Marriott and I rent a room with all my points, and I move into the Marriott Airport here in Miami, which was just the most decrepit old, it doesn't matter where you go, the damn green carpet, and it's the same in every Marriott, right? It's always there, and it's like my view of my room is looking on the dumpster of the hotel next door, and it's Christmas Eve, and I'm sitting there, all alone in the hotel, writing a suicide journal. I have this little journal, and I'm just kind of writing out why it makes sense to kill myself. And I'm really blessed. I was, seeing a therapist, because we had a couples therapist we went to, and then I kept going after the breakup. And I put in a call to him, and I was fortunate that he called me back and talked me off the figurative cliff. And I never realized until after I wrote Radical Rebirth, but that was really the response to that Christmas Eve where I was ready to blow my brains out. Realizing, hey, if you don't like yourself, you don't have to stay that person. You can change who you are. And if there are parts of you that you hate, or parts of your life that you hate, you can kill off those parts. And then you can replace them with the kind of person you want to be. And so that's really the underlying theme all through that book, is this can be a rebirth. And for most people, it's a radical rebirth, because most people are really messed up.
But most people don't even know. They don't even know that there's a choice. This is a big thing for me. People don't realize there's a choice. And that's the thing with me in depression. Again, Mikey with his mental health issues that we spoke about before, is to understand that people, this is why I'm so passionate about speaking in schools, because from such an early age now, people don't think they have a choice. And for me, again, you'll be the same with this. When you speak to adults, you understand that what the adult that presents in front of you, it all comes and stems back from childhood in some way, shape, or form. And all through life, they're living this essential lie, and they don't realize there's a choice. So essentially what you're saying here, the reason why this rebirth is so radical is because you're literally saying to people, listen, don't kill yourself, just kill off the parts that aren't serving you. Like, you are still fundamentally going to be a good human being. There's parts of you that you will like. Let's hold on to them. But let's just get rid of all this absolute shit that isn't serving you. And it's just a really, again, radical way of thinking about it. It's just not the common way of thinking about it.
Yeah, and I'm not a therapist. I have no training at all in that, and I don't pretend to be. I don't want to be. What I'm saying is, hey, I was fortunate to get professional help, and anyone who's entertaining those kind of thoughts, please do get professional help.
Absolutely.
And along the way, I hope you realize that, okay, I don't have to kill myself. I can kill off those parts of me that I don't like.
So what does that look like then? Like, obviously, I know you're not a therapist. So again, we're not talking from a therapeutic standpoint, but what kind of steps can people take to actually release some of these things that are no longer serving them?
Well, you've got to change those core foundational beliefs. So if your core belief is that money is evil and it makes people act evilly, you will repel money for your entire life. If somebody gifts you $10 million in their will, you will find a way to piss away that entire $10 million. If you win 300 million pounds in the lotto, you will find a way to be broke within 6 months to 9 months, because your core belief is that money is evil. So, but if you change that belief and you realize, no, money is just a tool. Money doesn't make me, money reflects who I am. And there are evil people who do bad things with money, and there are wonderful people who create miracles with money. And I can choose to be one of the good people who becomes wealthy and does empowering things with my wealth. And when you change that core foundational belief, then you're going to stop repelling money, and you're going to attract money and attract, and not just money, but prosperity in all the contexts. You know, everything at its ultimate level is energy vibrations. And energy can be attracted and energy can be repelled. So if you have the belief that people do bad shit with money, you will find a way to repel all the money that is trying to come into your life. And if you believe that marriages are supposed to be dysfunctional and abusive and bickering, you will find a way to sabotage the relationship of even the most kind, loving, well-adjusted people who love you. You will not be able to accept that love. You will find a way to sabotage that relationship. So it's always going back and question the premise. What are my core foundational beliefs in this area? And how did I get them? And when did I get them? And then when you recognize, wow, I got that belief when I was 7 years old. Maybe it doesn't serve me anymore that I'm 35 and I'm trying to go out and be happy and successful and prosperous in the world.
I think that's one of the big things, again, I spoke about this in your intros, like you're a critical thinker. Now, I've spoken about this before on the podcast. I think the ability to critically think is a lost art. Again, obviously through these mind viruses and stuff like that, like critical thinking is a lost art. People can't critically think for themselves. I just want to pick on something that you mentioned there about energy. Now, I know you can't see my ears pricking up because I've got headphones on, but this is that is it. Like at its core, like the books I'm reading, like this is where, again, people, again, I know I've done a podcast on this before. We spoke about this, but can we just talk about this energy? Like this, I 100% agree. I've experienced this in my life. I talk about it to people all the time. So I'd be very interested to hear your take on this, because again, it's all well and good me talking about it, but when you've got someone that I've never spoke to before talking about it as well, like this is my fundamental core belief. When you understand how this works, again, about energy transfer, the fact that everything is energy, when we talk about the subconscious and again, visualization, idealization, materialization, blah, 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 it's all energy. So can we just talk about that for a little bit? Like, what is your views on this? If you imagine my audience has no clue what we're talking about, can you try not to, by the way, I know this is a whole podcast by itself, but can you try and like summarize and articulate this whole energy thing that we're talking about here? Because once people understand that, they get it.
Well, if you found the most brilliant biomolecular scientist on Earth and asked her, what are we made of? She would tell you, we're made of energy. On an ultimate level, it's energy vibrations. This pen I'm holding in my hand, this earpiece in my ear, this body that is speaking to you right now, the phone or the tablet or the laptop you're watching or listening to this podcast on right now, at their ultimate level, they're all just energy vibrations. And you all went to school and you did the experiments with the magnets and the paper clips, and you saw what happened when you tried to put two positive magnets together and the positive and negative reaction. That's the way energy works. And it works all over the known universe. This is how stars are formed and universes are developed and all of that. It's all energy vibrations. So, you know, why can you walk into a room and know that two people were just having a furious argument? You sense the energy in the room, right? And that's really, I mean, at its base level, that's really all you need to know. Energy can be attracted, energy can be repelled. So what are you doing to attract positive energy? And what are you doing? You know, like, you can repel negative energy. You know, I've got a friend, he's devouring social media all day, every day. And so he gets outraged 15 times a day, and he sends me, you know, a message on Signal, you know, and I'm like, dude, either schedule a massage or take 2 days off from your social media account. But you can't keep sending me this shit. I don't want 10 messages from you every day about how you're outraged about how the administration is handling the masks and the, you know, the vaccinations and the economy and the, yeah. Hey, I actually left social media about 4 months ago. I closed all of my accounts and left them all because I don't want that energy in my life, right? And I only followed pretty positive people. But even those brilliant, positive people I follow, they get trolled by other people and they get dragged into it. And next thing you know, like literally today, my friend, the one who sends me all of them, there's a thing, Elon Musk and Jack from Twitter are trolling Andreessen Horowitz, on something about whatever. And I'm like, well, isn't this cute? We can look at billionaires trolling each other on Twitter.
Yeah.
That's funny. But you know what? I don't have time for that in my life. I'm working on stuff that really matters and I want to focus on that. And so and that's part of that programming thing where I say so when I send him enough messages like that, he realizes, God, every time I send this outrageous stuff to Randy, it doesn't trigger him like I want it to. He just tells me I need to go get a massage or, shut down my social media. So I need to send that to someone else who's going to give me that reaction I want, and they'll fight with me like I want to fight, right? So I've repelled that negative energy because I've just, here's the thing about life. We all have to play games. You want to find your soulmate, you got to be willing to play the dating game. You want to find your perfect job, you got to play the employee, application game. You want to take your company public, you got to play the investor game. You want to have a hit movie, you got to play the Hollywood game, right? So I believe you create a happy, healthy, prosperous life if you really mindfully choose what are the games that you want to play.
Pick and choose your battles.
Because, at the end of the day, if you play stupid fucking games, you're going to win stupid fucking prizes. So why do you want those prizes? Why don't you play fun, empowering games that get you fun, empowering prizes?
And lead you to be the person that you ultimately want to be. I think what analogy there used with energy as well about protecting your energy is essentially when it comes to like the sun energy, for example, if you get a magnifying glass and you concentrate that sun energy, it will set fire to something. But if you move the magnifying glass around, it doesn't do anything. But the problem as human beings is we don't realize when we concentrate our energy on something positive, we can change our life. The problem is we've got so many distractions that we can't actually concentrate our energy on anything. So therefore we don't go anywhere with our lives. That's fundamentally what's going on here. You've got these viruses that stop us from concentrating. They stop us from concentrating all our energy, our effort and our focus on improving our lives. Instead, you've got like your mate that's dropping you these messages. So you're there focusing on work. Then suddenly your energy shifted. Then you can't go back again. It doesn't work. You can't disperse that energy. It needs to be focused on something positive for you. I just want to end up here with just 2 quotes from your book and then ask you a final question. So 2 quotes from your book that really stood out for me, which I thought were really, really profound. The first one is, you can't live a prosperous life until you start living your truth. I think that's absolutely brilliant. I think far too many people don't live their truth. So they're living this lie, they're living the life that their parents want them to lead or something like that. And I think that's a big thing. Again, I know that you touch about it in the book about different genders and sexual preferences. So people living a lie. For me, that just really stood out to me about living your truth, and it'll help you live a prosperous life. And the second one is that you can never experience.
So wait. Let me protect you. Let me save you. You just said something that they're going to beat you up all over Twitter.
Hit me.
You said sexual preferences.
Okay, hit me.
And they're going to say, no. Those are not sexual preferences. They're innate characteristics. In other words, someone doesn't choose to be gay or choose to be trans or choose to be bisexual. That's a genetic thing.
Honestly, thank you for coming out on that, because I generally wouldn't have. Again, even having
there are people are going to say we got to cancel Daniel because he's, this is how it's getting now. It's just people are crazy about this stuff, and of course the people who are got all the mind viruses of fundamental religions would say, of course it's a preference. It says right in my holy book that it's a man and a woman, but that's not actual science. Actual science is there's not 2 kind of chromosomes. There's not XX and XY. There's like I don't know, 18 or 20 or 22 different variations of it. And so there are people across the spectrum of sexuality, but it's not a preference. Mm-hmm. It's a genetic characteristic, let's say. So just so nobody beats you up, I'm going to save you from the abuse.
But what you've done
from my LGBTQ brothers and sisters.
But what you've done is you've educated me, and that's what this whole thing for me is about. Like, again, one of the earlier podcast episodes, someone kept saying to me that I kept referring to women as females. Now, for me, I didn't see anything wrong with that. But they basically said to me that you can have a female cat or a female dog, but a woman implies that it's a female human being. So again, with that right there, I wouldn't have known. Again, that's my programming there. That, again, it's not from a religious point of view. It's just I've never really had this conversation when it comes to the sexual side of things. So that was a massive thing for you. So thank you very much for calling me out on that. And I'm really glad that you did. So again, for me, every day is a school day. So I've definitely learned something today. And my second quote with this as well. So genuinely, I really appreciate you doing that for me. And second thing is, you can never experience prosperity yourself if you're trying to deny it from others. And again, I think a lot of people go around their lives almost in a jealous frame of mind, trying to basically just dampen people's shine and their energy. So those two quotes for me, again, the book's loaded with them genuinely, but they're two that really stood out for me. And I had to stop on my walk and just jot them down to basically share with my audience because they're so profound. So my final question is, again, ask this to all my audience. What advice would you give to somebody right now that feels stuck and out of control of their life?
I really understand how you can feel like your life is out of control, but you've got to reposition because that is a belief that doesn't serve you. Your life is eminently in your control. And I get it. We all have things we don't control, right? This is where stoicism and stoic beliefs can be helpful, right? If you're born with, if you're Kyle Maynard and you're born a congenital amputee with no arms and no legs, that's definitely going to create issues and in your life that you can't control. There, W. Mitchell's a friend of mine who's a guy who's very famous, for his books. He was a guy who was paralyzed. He had his face burned off in a plane crash and a motorcycle accident. Then he crashed his plane and everything. And it's like, he says, hey, there are, 100 things I can no longer do, but there's still, a couple million things I can do, right? So you have to put things in perspective and realize, okay, yeah, there are some things that I don't control. You may live in a repressive dictatorship and you don't have control over that at the moment. You may be in an abusive relationship that you don't have complete control over, but you have to recognize, okay, what are the areas of my life that I do control? And what are the things that I can change? And how can I respond instead of react? And then how can I put myself in a better position? How can I create a radical rebirth for myself? What are the things I can change about myself that will allow me to change those other things that seem unchangeable at the moment? So please don't give up, don't accept defeat, just keep working. Just work toward becoming the highest possible version of yourself, and you will have a wonderful, prosperous life.
Honestly, Randy, this has been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. I knew it was going to be good, and I know that my audience has taken real value from this episode. So I just want to say personally, from me, thank you very much. And again, I've learned so much from listening to your book, and then also today, you've taught me so much just on this call. Where can people find out more information about you? I know you said you don't have social media anymore, but what is your website and where can people find out more about your books?
Yeah, so randygage.com, G-A-G-E. That's kind of my Starfleet command site, so that you'll find my blog there, my podcast there, links to all my books and other resources there. Amazon.com is probably the best place to find the books.
Amazing. Randy, thank you very much for your time today. It's been a pleasure connecting with you.
It's been great being on with you. What a great chat. Thanks for making it happen.
No, thank you very much.